So you published a page, you waited a couple of weeks, and it's never showed up in Google. Now, that is something that happens more often than you might think. And there are basically two gates that you need to pass through to make sure that it is seen on Google. And if one of those are closed, nobody will see anything. So let's go and fix that. Two gates are so simple to actually understand, but they are so important in the whole SEO process. And if you skip one of the two, you're going to make it very difficult for Google to understand what your site is about and actually to get featured where you want to be featured for the right types of queries. So starting off, on the one side, they are the crawlers. They want to make sure that they can get through your site and that they can understand how things fit together. Google comes and it has a look at the structure of your site, it has a look at the content in your site, and it just tries to find its way. So if you're crawlable, that's the first part. So functionally, your site is what it should be. Then the second one is if it is possible to index your content. The thing, however, is that even if your site is crawlable, it doesn't guarantee that your content will be indexed. And there are a few things that you can do to make sure that you actually get through both gates and that you get your content featured on Google the way that you actually want it to be shown. Crawlability issues are often very simple to resolve. The first place that you should go and have a look is just at your robots.txt file. At times, parts of your site might be marked as disallow. If that is the case, or you have a no index tag somewhere, that might be completely killing your traffic. What goes with that is if you have a look at something like WordPress, there are options in its general settings where you can make it visible or not to search engine crawlers. Pages on your site that are orphan pages and don't have any links going to them is one of the other main reasons why your content would not be crawled and not show up. If Google can't find it, they're not going to go looking for it in odd places, hoping that they stumble across it magically. So you need to make sure that there's a logical structure between the pages of your site where Google can understand how the pieces of content fit together and how they relate to each other. On the indexing side, that big culprit, that no index tag, is really the one that you should be watching out for most. If that is live on your site, it's often something that was implemented with the goal of not having Google see some pages on your site. For example, a login page or an accounts page, something like that that doesn't have any real relevance when it comes to Google search results. However, for the rest of your pages, your product pages, your service pages, anything that explains what your business is about, you want Google to see it, you want Google to crawl it, you want Google to index it, and you want people to see it. If you have that no index tag on those pages, it just remains invisible. One of the things that you need to also implement that is an absolute no-brainer is actually getting an XML sitemap in place. That is something that through multiple plugins you can actually get set up or fairly automatically. And once you have that XML sitemap, you'd be able to submit it in Google's Search Console and then in Bing Webmaster Tools to make sure that between the two search engines, your site gets crawled regularly and indexed regularly. The good thing about an XML sitemap is the way that it is set up is that as soon as you update a page or as soon as you add a new page to your site, that updates. So both Google and Bing would have the newest list of pages on your site that they need to pay attention to. So there's very little chance of you actually running into a situation where they wouldn't know of something new that jumped onto your site. And that is just something that you need to put in place. So easy, and it's a set it up once and forget it type of action to do. In your XML sitemap, it's also always a good idea to make sure that you just have live pages on them. Don't add pages that have redirects on them where they are going to new pages. That sends some mixed signals to Google. That might just make it a little bit more difficult for Google to understand what pages they should and shouldn't rank. If you really want to exclude pages, it is always good to then add them to your robots.txt, add that disavow, or add a no index tag if you really don't want anybody to see them. People would be able to navigate to them when they're on your site, for example, a cart page and a checkout page. But for Google to crawl and index that, there's no relevance to it. There's no real need for them to see. Now, circling all the way back to the initial problem that we mentioned. If you see that you've published content and it's weeks have gone by, and I'm talking about like a month or two, and you still don't see your site popping up in Google search results, what you might want to start with is to make sure that in Google Search Console, you start doing your troubleshooting there. Google has something called the URL inspection tool. Through that, you can see if there are any errors that they flag or any issues that they pick up with that page. And it would then be very easy to follow the steps that they offer to remedy the problem and make sure that your pages do get crawled and do get indexed. In Search Console, there's also a little tab on the left that says Index. And when you click on there, you'd be able to see a couple of the potential issues that might be popping up, where you might see that you have 404s that you can resolve. And it will give you a list of 404s where you can set up redirects for them. Other pages might have issues with canonical errors, and that is also something that is fairly easy to resolve. And then there's one that is very interesting called crawled, not indexed. Those are pages that Google can technically get through, but if they're not indexed, it is that they just don't offer enough value probably to Google. And Google don't feel that they would contribute to the overall body of content related to specific queries. So those pages are ideal ones to actually target for re-optimization. If you improve those pages, you make them more relevant to the topics that they're trying to cover, add internal links from them and to them on the site, you will resolve the issue. So, very simply put, both gates need to be open for your site to be ranked and to actually feature in search results. So start with that URL inspection tool if you've got pages that have been live for a while and they're just not popping up in the index. Work through the issues as they show up in Google Search Console and go and fix them one by one. You'll be able to run through that fairly easily. If you run into issues on trying to fix any of it, there are 1,000 YouTube videos on this to give you step-by-step guides and blog posts and everything of the like. So first, have a look at the issue and then go and find the answer on how to fix it for your type of site and the platform that it's on. If you run through that and you make sure that your site always remains easy to crawl and easy to index, you're just going to see steady growth with your site. It's a very easy thing to overlook, and it's something that can completely derail any SEO efforts. So go and do that now.